responders in your prayers at this difficult time. To honor the memory of Lieutenant Williamson, all City of Philadelphia flags will be flown at half-staff for 30 days. I also want to express my sincere gratitude and commend all of our first responders who responded swiftly and bravely to save many lives. To the 5 city employees that were injured, please know that we have resources and support to help you during this difficult time, and we wish you a speedy recovery. Now, for the details about the fire and the response, I'd like to turn it over to our Fire Commissioner, Adam Teal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to our Fire Department executive team, our partners with the Office of Emergency Management, L&I, Second Alarmers, all of the utility companies that are still out there. Of course, our colleagues with the Philadelphia Police Department are always there for us on our worst days. Our fire marshals still on the scene, and again, we're thankful that this incident was. I'm not sure it could be much worse, but it could have been worse. So I'm almost speechless. I'm not done crying, but I've cried once already. Thank you, Tony, and others who were there for me for that. And we're going to be there for Lieutenant Williamson's family, his colleagues, his sisters and brothers with the Philadelphia Police Department. We've received outpouring of support from literally all around the world since this tragic incident occurred, and I certainly want to appreciate First Deputy Commissioner Craig Murphy for being there on the scene, our Managing Director Tamar Alexander, and all of the folks who were there when this incident occurred. As you may have heard before, the building collapse was the secondary incident this morning at this property. The first incident was a fire that occurred just before 2 a.m. this morning. Our firefighters, this was a fairly, no fire is routine, certainly not in this city. Of course, unfortunately, we have a great deal of experience dealing with building fires in the city of Philadelphia. We average 7 to 8 what we call working fires, severe working fires, every 24 hours. Lieutenant Williamson was one of our most experienced lieutenants, had done time in our heavy rescue company, Rescue 1. And that incident, the fire, was essentially placed under control after a relatively short time. And while our fire marshals were inside, accompanying L&I inspectors, assessing the structural stability of the building so we could be in there doing the fire investigation, we also had firefighters still in there doing what we call overhaul, making sure there was no hidden fire in the building. And we also had one of our community action teams in there. We evacuated 8 residents from above the store in this property, and one of our community action team members, our CAT members, was up there getting medications for the folks. Again, we don't let people go back inside for exactly this reason. Buildings after fires are obviously have been structurally compromised, and given that in many other jurisdictions that don't have the same age of building stock that we have. And as you've heard me say before, the Philadelphia Fire Department is one of the busiest fire departments in the nation. We have more working fires, tragically, more fire deaths than almost any city in the United States. So after the collapse occurred, the new incident started, and second alarm was called to that scene, along with our collapse rescue resources, our Special Operations Command resources, our heavy rescue, our special operations companies. And they did, we're thankful to have that expertise here. Those are the many of the same folks who responded to the Surfside building collapse last summer as part of our Urban Search and Rescue Task Force, PA Task Force 1. And to have, so literally, thankfully, we were able to. We had several firefighters who were trapped in the rubble, and we were able to rescue, I guess depending on how you count, we were able to rescue 4 of them, 2 of whom are still in I guess I would say critical but stable condition at the hospital. The other folks who were in this collapse, involved in the collapse incident, have been treated and released. And of course, unfortunately, while we were able to access the folks who were, we had a couple folks who were in a void space that we were able to communicate with throughout most of the post-collapse. We were not able to, because of the degree of the collapse and where Lieutenant Williamson was located in the structure, we were not able to save him. And believe me, for our members, this is just another tragic event and a very tragic year. The worst thing for any firefighter or any medic, we all swear to save lives and protect property, and anytime we can't do that, whether it's a resident of the city, and certainly if it's one of our own sisters or brothers, we feel it very deeply. And this has been a tragic year for the Philadelphia Fire Department. This is we're just absolutely devastated. Lieutenant Williamson, highly respected throughout our department, had trained countless numbers of new firefighters, cadet firefighters, served our nation as a Marine, and had served the city for 27 years, working in companies in different neighborhoods. Lieutenant Williamson leaves behind a grieving family, partner, friends. The Philadelphia Fire Department, as we do, we will wrap around that family and work with them to ensure that Lieutenant Williamson is properly recognized, that his service is properly recognized. You can anticipate at some point in the future, again, we're still talking to the family, a full honors fire department funeral. We would expect, and certainly given the outpouring of support that I've seen and we've seen as a department, you can expect this to be a pretty large event, and the details of that will be released after we work together with the family. So I'll close for now and open it up for questions with please take a moment, say a prayer, be silent and thoughtful whenever you watch this broadcast, for Lieutenant Williamson, for the other injured members of our department, our L&I colleagues, for all those involved in this incident, our partners at the hospital, our medics who transported, again, so many people, our fire marshals. We're so fortunate that able to get our fire marshals out, our CAT team members. Just a terrible day for us and a terrible year. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Mayor, may I ask, you have a firefighter in your blood. I know you spoke about what that was like getting that call this morning.
Yeah.
But as the mayor, but also as someone who has a long line of, your father.
Yeah. Whenever the phone rings, anytime after 11, 12 o'clock at night, or before 7 o'clock in the morning, it's never good news. And Tumar Alexander called me about a little before 5 o'clock, gave me an assessment of what was going on, and then I went out to the scene. But it was the Lieutenant Williamson had already been removed, and the other firefighters and other personnel were already out of there. So I was there for a little bit, and then. And it is hard. I mean, I've had in my life, and I'm thankful enough that my dad, didn't lose his life, but he had been severely injured a number of times. I lost one of my best friends in life, 1993, I think it was, John Redmond, in that church fire. So it's upsetting, it's sad, and it's these folks, this family will never be the same again. I mean, they can try to heal, but they're never going to fully get over this. And so that's where we are.
When was the last time we lost a firefighter in the line of duty?
Well, we unfortunately have lost many firefighters in the line of duty. We've had several firefighters over the past 2 years die of COVID, and probably the question you're asking is, when was the last time we had a firefighter die a traumatic death like this? That was Matt Letourneau. Chief Thompson and I were at that incident. I was in the building with Matt when he was recovered, and believe me, we this definitely hits home. And I should also say that since Matt's death, we have done a lot as a department. There has been There was an after-action review, a very comprehensive after-action review performed after Matt Letourneau's death. We will do that same process here, and that is simply something on a significant incident like this. It is always the right thing to do a fully open and transparent after-action review. I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, we have folks who have become very skilled at that, given the number of line of duty deaths that we've had over the years. We also anticipate that the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, as they have done several times over the years, will come here to do a federal investigation on this line of duty death. That's something they do as a matter of course, typically whenever firefighters are killed in the line of duty. We expect those efforts, the after-action review and the NIOSH report, those typically take years, 1 to 2 years, given how comprehensive they are. The fire investigation into what happened with the fire, and then the engineering investigation about the collapse, that is still ongoing. So our fire marshals will be back at the scene in the morning at first light, along with their partners from our task force, PPD, ATF, and again, you've heard me say, that's always our team that investigates fires. So there's nothing about ATF's involvement that means anything except we all work together on these incidents, particularly where we lose one of our colleagues.
So Lieutenant Williamson and the other firefighters were assisting L&I when they were doing a walkthrough of the building afterwards?
No, there are multiple things that happen in a building after when we place a fire under control. That simply means, it doesn't even mean the fire is out. It simply means we no longer believe the fire is going to move beyond the building and threaten adjacent structures. One of the other things that's unique about Philadelphia is the density of our built environment here. That is not something that a lot of other places have to deal with. For us, almost everything is connected to or adjacent to something else. So once we place a fire under control, there still is active firefighting going on. Again, this process we call overhaul, which is opening up walls and ceilings looking for hidden fire. That's what those firefighters were doing while L&I was in there assessing the structural stability of the building. Our fire marshals were in there doing their investigation, and that's one of the things. Our fire marshals can't really do an investigation in a building that we are, and again, you're never certain. It's very difficult to know when the forces on one of these buildings, especially these old buildings that have been renovated multiple times, come together to the point where they collapse. This collapse occurred very quickly with almost no warning, and so that's why we had L&I there. Our fire marshals were there doing their initial investigation, and then the collapse happened, so obviously we went back into operational mode. There still is a fire investigation to be performed on the original incident, so that's what they'll be doing, and then also those other reviews that I mentioned.
And then for L&I, when was the last time that building was inspected, and what were the results of that inspection?
The last inspection was in June of 2020. It was a case that was issued. It was an old case of fire violations issued to the previous restaurant, which had gone out of business. We've had, since that time, there have been no inspections, no complaints, no permits.
So I guess there was some safety issues previously in the last inspection?
Yeah, the original inspection was done in 2018. They identified some fire violations relative to the restaurant that was there, the previous restaurant.
Is there any evidence that those issues were fixed?
It was out of business. The place was closed when we did our follow-up investigation in June of 2020.
And did this business, the new business, did that have a business license?
The only license they would be getting would be a food license. They did not have a food license. I don't know what else they did in there, but typically that's the license for restaurants.
Commissioner, first I just want to say I'm so sorry. But what was the time frame? How long were the firefighters, the L&I inspector trapped? How long did it take to recover them?
I would say, 3
Total?
total?
Yeah, about 3 hours.
Probably 3 hours until we were able to. Lieutenant Williamson was obviously the most severely trapped and difficult to access, and so he was the last one that we were able to recover, and the others were actually rescued and transported by our medics to Temple, where they were treated and released. Several of them were treated and released, as I mentioned. 2 are still hospitalized, and we'll be going over there. They're still in pretty serious condition, so we'll be. Also, we have firefighters stationed at the hospital with them to continue to take care of them and their families as they recover from these injuries. And again, unfortunately, the Philadelphia Fire Department is no stranger to firefighters being injured, to fires, firefighter injuries, medics being injured, and tragically, we're no stranger to line of duty deaths. That doesn't make it any easier. We're absolutely grieving. We're mourning. We have a lot more crying and a lot more processing to do as this unfolds, and we, move forward with properly honoring Lieutenant Williamson.
Commissioner, you said he has a son, or Lieutenant Williamson leaves behind a son. Do you know by chance how old his son is?
I don't know exactly, but he's in his 20s. Yeah. So we met with the family at the funeral home earlier, and again, we'll be spending a lot of time with them. And I also want to acknowledge, Captain Derek Bomer on my team and our funeral team, Captain Gilliam. They have way too much practice in knowing what to do after these tragic incidents, and they once again today acquitted themselves well, and the Philadelphia Fire Department well. And we want to do that for the family from the outset and take care of them from the moment these tragedies occur.
Commissioner, can you talk about the challenge of doing these investigations while grieving and while feeling this emotion?
Well, I think we're professionals. Our folks are professionals and very experienced professionals. I mean, this is, again, for better or worse, we're one of the most experienced firefighting departments in the entire nation. And as a result, we know how to do this, and we know how to, our folks see tragic things 24/7, 365. I mean, we do an average of 1,000 emergency incidents every 24 hours of all types. Our medics, busiest medic unit in the country right here in Philadelphia. So, our folks are, as Philadelphians are, they're tough, they're stoic, and they pull together in a pinch. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull together and continue to do the work. We had another working fire in West Philly today where we rescued and transported another building occupant, another resident. So the beat goes on. We never miss any incidents. So whatever happens, and in this entire time, we've continued to have fire incidents, EMS incidents all day, even as our members who are working to save their brother firefighters.
Can you just explain a little bit about the rescue of the survivors? I mean, you look at the rubble, and it's amazing that anybody got out of it.
Yeah, it was a very complex scene, and I use that word deliberately. There are different types of building collapses, and this building collapsed in several different ways. So we had several different types of collapses on that site. The characteristics of those different kinds of collapses also affect the tactics that are used to rescue people that are trapped. And one area of the building, which is where a couple of these folks were trapped, was easier to access because of the type of collapse it was. And unfortunately, the area where Lieutenant Williamson was located, he was actually just feet away, yards away from one of the other members of his company today who was rescued, who's still being treated at Temple and will be there for a while. So these buildings really collapse often without warning. It's very complex, especially these old buildings that have been renovated multiple times, particularly after a fire. And look, this is a risky business, what we do, and our folks absolutely do everything they can to reduce that risk and manage that risk in concert with all of our partners. As I mentioned, Lieutenant Williamson had spent time on our heavy rescue company, so he certainly knew what was going on around him in a building in a post-fire environment. And unfortunately, this collapse happened very quickly and in a way that made it difficult for us to rescue everybody, despite the best efforts of our members. And believe me, they worked. Our folks never give up on anybody, and that's what happened this morning. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
You've just been watching a live update from officials within the city of Philadelphia, the Fire Commissioner Adam Teal and Mayor Jim Kenney. Thank you for watching this special streaming edition of NBC 10 News at 6. I'm Rosemary Connors. While many are gathering on this Father's Day weekend, Tragedy strikes the family of a Philadelphia firefighter. He lost his life serving the city in the line of duty. 51-year-old Lieutenant Sean Williamson, who leaves behind his mother and his adult son, died in the collapse. He was a 27-year veteran of the department, and most recently he was assigned to Ladder 18, located in Hunting Park. This collapse happened an hour after crews were able to get to a fire that broke out early this morning inside a building on West Indiana Avenue in the city's Fairhill neighborhood. NBC 10 obtained this exclusive video of the collapse from a nearby corner store. You can see in that video, just take a look there in the top right corner of your screen, that large cloud of dust that just emerged from that building. NBC 10's Brian Sheehan, he was just at that news conference. You may have heard him asking questions of the fire commissioner and of the mayor. He joins us now live to tell us more about what we've just learned and also to tell us about the other victims. 5 people had to be rescued from that collapsed building. Brian?
Yeah, Rosemary, as you just heard, a very emotional Fire Commissioner Adam Teal, very emotional, Mayor Jim Kenney and others here today. What they're calling a very sad day in Philadelphia, and it is a sad day. Let's go ahead and show you the 51-year-old Lieutenant Sean Williamson. He was a 27-year veteran of the department. We learned he leaves behind his mother and an adult son who was likely looking forward to Father's Day tomorrow, like so many people are. We learned Williamson and 4 other firefighters, as well as a member of L&I, were inside the building when it collapsed this morning, trapping them inside. Rescuers worked for hours to recover them, but Williamson was pronounced dead on scene. 2 other firefighters were transported to Temple University Hospital, and we are told that they are there in critical but stable condition tonight. One of those firefighters, Commissioner Teal said, was actually just feet away from his colleague, who, of course, was Lieutenant Sean Williamson. So we are learning more. We asked some questions to L&I. We'll have more on that coming up tonight at 11 o'clock. But for now, we'll send it back to you, Rosemary.
And Brian, real quickly before you go, something the commissioner said just toward the end of that news conference was that this was a very complex collapse. Certainly the city of Philadelphia has seen building collapses with old buildings, but he described this one as complex in terms of what happened and obviously the investigation that now begins.
Yeah, and you've seen the images of it. It is, as you know, people mentioned here today, it's a miracle that anybody made it out of here. I mean, of course, one person did not, but it is just a very complex scene. As you see, you take a look at the rubble and the firefighters were going through for hours. A member of the fire department earlier today said that they were actually communicating with some of them, and then actually they were using the tapping methods as they were continuing their search for several hours this morning. It was believed they were in there for about 3 hours. So it was a lengthy search, and it was a very complex scene, and is a complex scene. Of course, a lot to be done here as this investigation is just getting underway, of course, as the fire department and the city is mourning the loss of that firefighter.
Brian Sheehan live for us. Brian, we'll see you later on this evening on NBC 10 News at 11 o'clock. And you just saw moments ago that drone video from NBC 10 that showed just the rubble, the destruction of that scene. NBC 10's Karen Hua, she was out there today. She spoke to those who witnessed the collapse, and tonight she reports from that neighborhood.
This is the rubble that's left after a building collapse and fire this morning. But it's not just this building that's gone. It's a firefighter lost, a man with a family, the day before Father's Day. It started as a routine fire call, but it ended up a worst-case scenario.
I noticed that I started digging a hole in the middle of the property. Well, that's when they excavated one of the firemen dead. They put a flag over him, an American flag.
Rolando Cortez lives down the block from the collapse and saw the aftermath. The crowd saluting as their fellow firefighter was pulled out. The hugs and tears that followed.
This is a job that it takes ability and acknowledgement and courage to every day save a life out here. Unfortunately, he didn't get to save one.
The firefighter who died, a 27-year veteran of the department. Cortez immediately recognized him from the neighborhood.
Tomorrow's Father's Day, and if he's married, got kids, it's going to be a sad day.
5 other firefighters' families grateful their loved ones made it home safely today. Patricia Somarini's son-in-law narrowly escaped before the collapse.
He just walked out and the building collapsed. They're brothers, you know? They're family.
It's a job where sometimes not all who go in come out.
We have the greatest fire department in America, and our folks put it on the line every day.
And now in speaking to that battalion chief, he says it's something his department will definitely be recovering from for quite a while. In Fairhill, Karen Waugh, NBC 10 News.
A very sad day for the Philadelphia Fire Department. We continue to cover all angles of what happened. Make sure you have the free NBC 10 app for any breaking details and alerts. We will also have the latest on this tonight on NBC 10 News at 11 o'clock. I'm Rosemary Connors. I'll see you back here in just a few hours. Have a good evening.